Let's start with the news here, and that is these National Security Agency disclosures about whether Americans' privacy has been invaded. This morning in the Washington Post, Barton Gellman, who will be along later this morning on this broadcast, has a big front page story about government officials, and it just underlines that this is something that's been going on for a long time. They've been worried about National Security Agency encroaching on Americans' privacy. Back in 2004, two officials at the time, the acting Attorney General, James Comey, and the FBI Director, Mueller, threatened to resign because they thought the surveillance was being done, that they were intruding on privacy. They didn't. But I must say, Mr. McDonough, a lot of what that story underlines seems very much like what we're hearing about today with these disclosures by Edward Snowden. So let me just ask you to start. Do you have any comment on this story that Bart Gellman has this morning?
I saw the Bart Gellman story, and he's obviously worked on this over the course of the last couple of weeks pretty aggressively. I will say that much of what he was reporting on was a draft Inspector General report about a program that was suspended now several years ago because of the way we saw its usefulness. That's point one. Point two, you mentioned Jim Comey, who was the Deputy Attorney General at the time. He's recently been considered among many other people for a lead job by President Obama, to include potentially as FBI Director. It's precisely because of his views on things like surveillance that I think he's come to the President's attention. Three, let's take a minute and step back. The debate in 2004, 2005 was about a program that did not have any congressional involvement, did not have any judicial oversight, and frankly did not have any of the internal administration-based checks and balances that we have today. When President Obama came into office in 2009, after being elected in 2008, he was pretty skeptical about the importance of these programs. So he took a very hard look at them. And as a result, we changed many things about how we oversee those programs. Congress now is much more robustly involved in these programs. You'll hear that from your next guest. Not just the intelligence committees, but also the judicial committees, and every member of Congress has been given a classified white paper to review, to take a look at these. So part of what you see reflected in the Bart Gellman story is part of what the President was reacting to when he made fundamental changes in how we oversee these programs.
Well, let me just get you on the record here now. Does the President feel that he has violated the privacy of any American?
He does not.
You feel that that has been taken care of. You know, I think back to what Ronald Reagan used to say, trust but verify. But in this situation, it seems to me the government may be asking us to trust it, but they can't verify why we ought to trust it in some cases.
Well, I think you'll hear the President talk about this in the days ahead, Bob, and you'll hear him say again what he said in his speech earlier this month at the War College at the National Defense University. You hear what he said when he responded to reporters last week on this question, which is we do have to find the right balance, especially in this new situation where we find ourselves with all of us reliant on internet, on email, on texting. So we find ourselves communicating in different ways. But that means the bad guys are doing that as well. So we have to find the right balance between protecting our privacy, which is sacrosanct in the President's view, and protecting the country from the very real risks and threats that we face. So what the President's not saying, and this goes to the heart of the changes he made in 2009. The President is not saying, trust me. The President is saying, I want every member of Congress on whose authority we are running this program to understand it, to be briefed about it, and to be comfortable with it. That's why we've done things like we did in 2009 and 2011 by presenting a classified white paper, inviting every member of Congress, 535 members of them, to see that piece of paper, to study it, and to come to us with questions. Congress has authorized these programs now in very robust debates. And those debates are to their credit. But at the end of the day, it was bipartisan majorities that enacted these. And lastly, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, the FISA court, looks at all these programs on a very regular basis to make sure that they comport with the law, that they comport with our standards and our values. And throughout this process, we have independent audits that are conducted by inspectors general and by the Department of Justice at NSA, to make sure that this is being conducted in a way that stands up to our values. And to be honest with you, I think if Bob Mueller and Jim Comey, who were having that conversation in 2004, could see what would transpire over the subsequent several years, they'd be very comfortable with the programs that we're running today, and in fact, both of them are.